everyone knows how I feel. I made it very clear after the debate that I thought he should continue. But that was not what most people wanted. So, but Joe Biden is the kind of person who pulls himself up from rock bottom, and I think he could have stumbled into it. I really do.
That was a video clip from Case Study QB, who watches cable news and clips out the relevant moments so you don't have to watch it. So thank you for that. But last week, Mika Brzezinski admitted that she thinks that Joe Biden could have stumbled his way into a second term had he remained in the 2024 presidential race.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into a sharp and fiery breakdown from Anna Kasparian that doesn't hold back from the controversies surrounding Joe Biden's presidency to the widening gap in how the media tells the story. Anna zeroes in on slanted coverage, foreign policy blunders, and the rising public anger. Is the mainstream press protecting Biden from fair criticism, or are they just disconnected from what's really happening? Stay tuned as we break down the bold, unapologetic commentary that's shaking up the political conversation.
You heard a small portion of why she thinks that. Maybe she makes a better point with fuller context involved, so let's take a look.
People responded very badly when he beat Trump during that campaign to Trump bullying him or going after his remaining son. People stood up for Joe Biden because they knew who he was. They know who he is. And I think an aging Joe Biden is very self-aware about that, and so is his team around him. And he's still 10 times more qualified than what we've got. And he's qualified to manage the world stage. I think after that disastrous debate, he did a news conference. Remind me, Lemire, was it the NATO summit?
Yeah, a couple weeks later.
NATO
summit was
at
in Washington.
8 at night. And yep, he got names wrong. Yep, he had to correct himself a few times, but his knowledge of world affairs was in depth and clear. People chose to, filters instead of reality, which was his good president who has historic presidency, who was able to beat Donald Trump. End of story.
Based on Joe Scarborough's facial expression as Mika Brzezinski is talking, I am about as convinced as he is in the points that she's making. I don't know, maybe I'm totally misreading his face, but he seems like he's not buying it at all.
Yeah.
I certainly am not buying it at all. Biden's internal polling, his campaign's internal polling, showed him losing 400 electoral college votes.
Well, look, his face is probably grimacing because he's like, no, Mika, we're now kissing Trump's ass. Remember, Mika. So we'll get to Joe in a second. But there was so many great things in that little clip. He could have stumbled into it, she said. Wow. That really is compelling. That maybe your preferred candidate, who is in obvious mental decline, could have accidentally stumbled into the presidency again. What a compelling case. Well, I mean, he did so great at that NATO summit press conference. I mean, he forgot a bunch of names and a lot of other things that had to be corrected later. But no one understands, but he had such a great command of foreign policy. Isn't that table stakes if you're running for president? I mean, I know it isn't lately. Trump barely knows foreign policy, and Biden's foreign policy was, Israel, what should I write in the blank check I'm about to send you for slaughtering Palestinians?
The bias in mainstream media has hit new extremes, with MSNBC leading the charge in its relentless effort to uphold Joe Biden's image. Mika Brzezinski's claim that Biden might stumble into a second term perfectly captures just how out of touch these media elites have become. Instead of tackling the real problems with his presidency, figures like Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough seem more interested in spinning a narrative that fits their politics, spoon-feeding viewers a glossy version of reality. By shielding Biden from criticism, they further damage public trust. This narrative control ignores growing dissatisfaction, especially on major fronts, like foreign policy and economic strain, leaving audiences alienated. Biden's frequent missteps and visible cognitive issues are becoming harder to dismiss, except by the very outlets trying to defend him. His stumbles at the NATO summit, where he forgot names and leaned on corrections, show exactly why many question his fitness for office. Yet the press won't address these concerns, instead insisting he's a steady leader in tough times. This refusal to acknowledge reality only widens the gap between media and the public. as more Americans grow weary of the spin and demand honest reporting.
Oh, by the way, that'll make me deeply, deeply unpopular, as a poll that we just shared with you guys shows. Only 20% of Americans liked his policy towards Israel. And among the young, it was under 10%. So, wow, what command of foreign policy. Okay, so every part of this is comical, but the most hilarious part was when she said that people chose filters instead of reality. You're the filter, Mika! You're the filter who is detached from reality. His own advisor said 0% chance of winning. 0%. But that's reality. But Mika's filter is, oh, so if you add another 1 and another 0, that gets to 100%. So Biden would have won! Biden would have won! No, you're the ludicrous filter.
Yeah, look, Biden suffering from mental decline as he was in the top political post in the country, the most powerful position, certainly in the United States, but most powerful position worldwide. Let's keep it real. She was okay, right? Like, her audience is there. It's not impacting her cushy life negatively in any way, shape, or form. Inflation, what inflation? Inflation is just totally unbothered by that. In fact, I remember after the presidential election, she and Joe Scarborough did a segment where Joe Scarborough was shocked at the price of butter. He's like, oh my God, $8? $8 for a stick of butter? Yeah, Joe, where have you been, homeboy? And it's because they're unbothered, they're untouched by the disastrous policy decisions and some of the economic issues that riddled Biden's term. And so, while on one hand, I'm making a point about Joe Scarborough appearing to be confused by Mika's ridiculous points, in the next clip that we're about to watch, you'll see that Joe Scarborough seems to be befuddled about other things as well.
Biden's foreign policy, especially his unwavering backing of Israel, has pushed away a large section of Americans, particularly younger voters, as the conflict intensifies. His blank check approach to Israel's controversial actions is not only misaligned with public opinion, but it signals a leadership style that seems out of step with what voters care about. Recent polls are telling, only 20% support his stance on Israel, with less than 10% approval among young Americans. This growing disapproval reveals a deepening disconnect between Biden's global decisions and the values of a changing nation. At home, economic hardship worsens his challenges. Inflation continues to stretch household budgets, shaking public confidence. Even simple things like the skyrocketing cost of butter show how disconnected political and media elites are from everyday struggles. Joe Scarborough's shock over grocery prices proves how insulated they've become. For many Americans, these rising costs are a painful signal that Biden's policies aren't working. The result, a growing sense of frustration with a leadership team that feels increasingly distant.
What exactly is a cigar store Indian that Chris Matthews just made a reference to? What was that?
Yeah, so he makes such antiquated references. In the old days, they would have this. Anyway, I don't even want to explain it. Let's get to the
Don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's so funny that he kind of, there's the two statements that he made kind of explain what's wrong here. So first he says, if anyone told you that they saw Biden doing poorly in the debate and being in mental decline before the debate, they're lying. Now that's hilarious, right? Because half the country saw that Joe Biden was in mental decline and they thought he was going to do terrible in the debate, and they were right. Now, most of that was right-wingers, and you can say they're biased, but it wasn't all right-wingers. We thought he was going to do terrible in the debate. We thought he was in mental decline, and we said that about a year before the debate. And we were proven spectacularly correct, unfortunately, okay? So that's half the interesting stuff. But then he says, so historians will have to figure out why things happened the way that they did regarding Joe Biden. No, sociologists and anthropologists will have to break down why everyone in mainstream media couldn't see the most obvious thing in the world that the entire rest of the country did see. 7 out of 10 Americans said that Joe Biden was not mentally well enough to run before the debate. But when Scarborough says, well, I mean, they'd have to be lying if they said that before the debate. What he's accidentally saying is everyone he knows. Because everyone he knows is in power, is in the establishment, and is in the elites. And among that group, they so believe their groupthink that they all believe that Joe Biden was young and dynamic. So in that group, Scarborough's actually telling the truth. All of those guys, and because now half of them are pretending they knew all along, when in reality they were butchers for Joe Biden and would attack viciously anyone who said the truth. Half of those guys are now pretending that they knew all along, and golly gee, they were trying to help or something, right? But Scarborough's right. No, among the elites and among cable news anchors, none of them knew. You think they're part of some sort of evil plot. They're not. They're just in a bubble, and they have this group thing. Democratic leadership are geniuses. Don't look behind the curtain. You'll find out that the Wizard of Oz isn't what he says he is. But geniuses. Joe Biden is the greatest candidate. All those people thought that. And that's because they're so detached from reality. They sound like lunatics to the rest of us. But to them, they think they're the great and powerful objective press.
And I mean, they're really giving their whole game away. You know, on one hand, they want to act like they're providing informative news to the American people, informative political analysis to the American people.
The gap between media elites and ordinary Americans has never been clearer as people across the country face the real-world fallout of inflation, foreign policy, and economic instability. Media personalities stay tucked in their bubbles of privilege. That insulation lets them promote a positive, almost celebratory view of Biden's presidency, despite overwhelming signs of public dissatisfaction. Unsurprisingly, this major disconnect has shattered trust in legacy media. Disillusioned audiences are now turning to alternative outlets that reflect their lived realities and actually address their concerns. Nowhere is this media blindness more obvious than in the 2024 election coverage. Even as polls showed rising doubts about Biden's mental sharpness, the press stuck to the idea that he was a strong candidate. This groupthink blinded them too. Public frustration, and when voters' sentiment clashed with their predictions, they were left stunned by choosing bias over clear-eyed reporting. The media hasn't just failed to inform, they've pushed themselves toward irrelevance. Among viewers who are tired of being misled and hungry for truth,
we have to live in reality, and sometimes we're going to hear news that we don't like, that goes against our political preferences. They just spoon-fed people exactly what they wanted to hear, exactly what they themselves as hosts wanted to hear. But that was not rooted in reality when it came to this presidential election, which is why Donald Trump won the popular vote, swept the swing states, and absolutely crushed Kamala Harris. And he would have crushed Joe Biden even more.
Yeah. So look, they're friends with Joe Biden. They've said it. Yep. They talk to him all the time. They love that Joe Biden watches their show and then forgets about it instantly afterward. But that's not supposed to color your analysis on television. But they're so brazen about it. I mean, look at what the mental patient Mika Brzezinski said. She said people love the way that he defended and handled his one remaining son. Did they? Because polling shows that they hated the way he handled Hunter Biden.
Yeah. Now,
you could say that's unfair, and we defended that there was no connection between Hunter and Joe Biden, because we stick with the facts no matter which way they go. But to be so deluded as to think that the American people really like the way Joe Biden handled Hunter, you have to be an extra level of detached from reality. So look, guys, it's not the fault of the voters or the viewers. They're getting their information from certain media sources. Everybody gets it from some media source, right? That's how you find out facts, information, etc. So if you, to Anna's point, if you were shocked by what happened in this election, by definition, you're listening to or watching or reading the wrong media. The media that you're reading or consuming is lying to you and telling you that Joe Biden had a terrific chance and that Kamala Harris had a chance at the end for sure, right? But that she had it locked up and it was guaranteed, just like Hillary Clinton's was locked up and guaranteed. They've been systematically lying to you for decades and calling it objective.
The media's failure to deliver objective coverage reflects a larger crisis in institutional trust that continues to grip the U.S. instead of chasing the truth. Many outlets now promote political narratives that match their biases. This pattern has systematically misled the public, weakening confidence in one of democracy's most vital institutions. And this isn't just about slanted coverage, it's about a deep-rooted refusal to face inconvenient facts, preferring to sculpt reality for partisan ends. As this approach continues, it not only drives viewers away but also feeds the rising cynicism and division that threaten honest conversation in America. Once trust is broken, it's hard to restore, and media outlets' unwillingness to correct course only speeds up their slide into irrelevance. People want facts, not spin. What do you think of today's video? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.